I use my iPad and Apple Pencil to take my notes in comparison to using a computer because I take notes for math in my classics class. For math, it would be hard to type on a computer the numbers and the formulas and stuff like that. And it's better than paper because I like to download the slides from my professor and I can actually go along with her through the notes. Using my iPad, I can organize the lectures in the same spot instead of having all my work in one book. And with having the lectures on my iPad, the work is with the definitions and explanations, so I don't have to look back and compare, and it lets me have it all in one place without trying to write down every single word. For my classics class, you could use a computer, but there's diagrams on the board that he writes to make everything go together, so it makes more sense to write it down on either a piece of paper or an iPad. But I like using my iPad so I can have it all organized in one section together, and I can always add on to it, or I can add summaries of the text from the internet onto it as well. Also, if I'm traveling or I'm going somewhere, it's just easier to have my iPad with me instead of having my entire book full of notes, and I might not even be able to find my notes in each page because you have to go through every single page. Instead of my iPad, I can just go into the folders and find which date and which lesson I have to look at, which makes it so much easier if I'm studying somewhere else for a test and I just want to look at my notes compared to having to go and bring my book each time. The app I use for all my notes is Notes Plus because it does the same exact thing as other notes apps, but it's free. So for my math class, I first go to our course on Canvas and I slide down to the lecture notes and I download the lecture notes onto my app. And then throughout class, I write the same things that she's writing on her notes onto my notes. And for math, there's not really additional information that she says out loud that you need written down, so I just say the same thing that she does, and I make sure to highlight anything that's important to separate, make it more clear for myself. And then for my classes class, I do a mix of written notes and summary. The written notes are what he writes on the board as well as additional information that he says out loud, and I organize it with highlighting and diagrams just to make it easier for myself. For reflections or open notes, so having summaries on the side really help me understand what's going on in each chapter and pictures of the board as well. Here I just have some of the summaries separated because it's a combination of two different chapters or stories, and then I also summarize the summaries more on the side with notes. And then here I also have the themes highlighted to make it easier to find. Writing on the iPad allows me to have these diagrams that I wouldn't be able to have on a computer. Just looking back at this note, it's so much easier for me to write diagrams on my iPad in comparison to writing my notes on a computer. And again, if I was using paper, I wouldn't be able to combine my notes with these summaries from the internet as well as pictures from the class. So having on my iPad just allows me to combine it all in one place. Within the app, I have all my notes separated into folders just so it's easier to find everything. I'm going to go in and label the recitation notes by date so I can make it easier to find for quizzes, but this is what I have right now with the organization. To sum up my note-taking, I take them on my iPad. For my calculus class, I take exactly what she writes on the board and I copy that into my own notes, rewriting it so I can understand it instead of just looking and listening. And then for my classics class, in addition to writing what he has on the board, I also write what he's saying to help me. And for both these classes, I feel like it's better that I have on my iPad and the fact that I'm writing it down because it's easier for me to remember in comparison to using a computer. But also, writing it on an iPad is better than writing on paper just because I'm more organized. Having the ability to go back into my notes whenever I'm studying or for my classics class doing reflections and just being able to have such easy access to what I want without having to flip through book pages or even just go on my computer and try to figure out what I was trying to write for a math class. Everything's in one spot and it's all organized in the folders, which just makes it so much easier. Here are just some more examples of my notes that I take on my iPad. You can just see that for a math class, it's so much easier to write numbers and formulas and some diagrams using an iPad. And then for my classics class as well, it just shows the flow of the text so much easier using an iPad. And that showed my process for taking notes for both my calculus and my classics class on my iPad. Thank you for listening.